this is fascinating. Just stay with us for this. It takes time to explain, but it's fascinating. Let's see if we can make some money out of this. First of all, front runners. Can we make money out of it? What's the good side? What's the bad side?
What I've tried to do is I've tried to, on a very simplistic level, I've tried to come up with a list of which courses have favoured, have had the most horses that have managed to make all the running. But I think it's worth, before we look at that, having a look at the possible difficulties in finding this, because it's difficult to find accurate and exact numbers because there are so many variables involved.
Okay, so let's have a look. These are the problems you're facing before we start and give you the runners. So just run through that, first of all.
Right, well, if you're trying to devise a list of which courses have had the most winners that have made all the running, or front runners that have won, first of all, if you're doing it like I did from comments in running interpretation, looking at just reading them, the problem you have firstly is what do you include as a horse that's made all? Is it just one that you restricted just to where the comment says made all? If a horse leads after 2 furlongs, if a horse leads after a furlong, so it's difficult to pin it down exactly. Also, you need to bear in mind that, for instance, if a horse disputes the lead for the first half of the race at a decent gallop and then carries on winning, it's probably actually a much more emphatic win in terms of making all than if it's had an easy lead.
Agreed.
So that's the first problem. Okay. Second problem, field sizes. It's tricky because if you get one course that's had, say, lots of fields of 4, 5, 6 runners, whereas you get another field that's had a load of 17, 18 runner races, it's obviously going to be different. What I did, and it's not an ideal scenario at all, but I ignored all races with less than 8 runners. I then grouped and I ignored all massive fields by which I judged to be 18 runners or more, because I think it's difficult to establish when the leader actually leads there anyway, and when the fields start getting that big. So I just concentrated on field sizes between 8 and 17, and I divided them into 2 groups, 8 to 12, 13 to 17, and I weighted the percentage results according to how many runners there'd been in each, how many races there'd been in each group. So I've tried to take into account the field sizes, but it's still an inexact science. What you would really want to do is compare all the 8 runner races, all the 9 runner races, all the 10 runner races, but that would be very time consuming, so I didn't have time to do that.
So you're moving on to the going variations. How would that...
I've got to say I haven't taken them into account at all, and there are lots of other factors as well that I haven't taken into account, such as the race distance is the most important one, because several people pointed out to me on Twitter this morning, and they're absolutely correct, that you can get different stats for, say, the straight course at Ascot, the round course at Ascot, similar for the sprint course at Sandown. There are other variations, other variables that could have a major impact on the results, such as position in the market. If one course happens to get an oversized number of front runners that are in form coming, and they're going to start favourite, they're probably going to throw up odd results. Draw bias as well, because sometimes what might seem a pace bias is actually a draw bias, and Newcastle is probably the best example of that in recent years, where horses that have got to the rail first on many occasions when the stalls have been on the stand side have proved impossible to pass. You've then also got what I call the time span versus sample size conundrum, which basically is you want the sample size to be as big as possible, but how far back do you go back before you decide that the statistics are out of date? I went back 5 years, but things can change during 5 years.
That's fair, because courses have changed, they've had a better training systems, etc.
We'll certainly see one course in particular when we look at the stats in a minute that has changed significantly in this respect. And finally, the trainers and jockeys' perception of tracks that favour front runners is also very significant, because if you get a course that is thought to favour front runners, trainers are more likely to send those horses there. Therefore, you're more likely to end up with 3 or 4 potential front runners in a race.
Which
therefore
cause problems.
They're going to take each other on. You're going to be less likely to get a winner making all the running. And I think there's been an element of that in a couple of courses we'll see in the list. All
right. So what we're saying is that this is what you have done and you've come up with. And there's a lot of hard work here. We know it might vary 1 or 2%, but even so, it's very good. So let's put the full list up. Now, this is on the turf. Remember, it's not on the all weather. It's the turf race courses. Now, the percentage of handicap winners that made all, the winning track is Lingfield.
Yeah, this relates only to handicap winners, only to turf races over the last 5 years. It's field sizes between 8 and 17, and it was weighted. I'd divide them into 8 to 12, 13 to 17.
So it's the
you
average.
have a look at the rest. Lingfield is a good example of one of those tracks where what the number of winners that have made all has certainly been influenced by the track bias, because like I mentioned with Newcastle earlier, getting to the stands rail earlier is a big advantage, and it's not so much a pace bias as a draw bias there.
And that would be the same at Chester, which is second, or not?
Yes, up to a point, although I think that's still worthy of note for a couple of reasons. First of all, everybody knows that the inside rail is the place to be for obvious reasons at Chester. It's a course where you do see a lot of front runners, and yet the number of winners that have made all still holds up, and particularly in sprint handicaps where everybody sends their fast horses, their speedballs there. I was amazed when this is one that I did break down into sprint distances and races over further. And over the last 5 years, over 40% of sprint handicaps have been won by horses that have been described as made all or made nearly all.
Yeah.
What that means in effect is that in a 5 furlong, 6 furlong handicap at Chester, really the horse that's in the lead after a furlong should be about a 6 to 4 chance, which is interesting. In handicaps, that surprised me still how much it was. Going a little bit further down the list, but still way up at the top, two very stiff tracks, Hamilton and Carlisle. Hamilton has long had a reputation for being a good track for front runners, and it's maintaining that reputation now. Carlisle is a much more interesting one, because I think most people would not have anticipated that as being a track that would really suit front runners, and yet the stats that I've turned up, and I repeat again, they're not completely bomb-proof, but I think they are a reasonable guide, and there have been a lot of front horses making all the running. And maybe this is kind of the reverse thing to what I was talking about before, where it's seen as such a stiff track. Perhaps trainers are reluctant to send a lot of front runners there, and perhaps jockeys are reluctant to get involved in a pace duel, and that might enable the horses that are on the front of the pace. This is just a theory off the top of my head, but for whatever reason, Carlisle has produced a lot of front running winners.
What's the other interest? But you got Epsom here, 15% for handicap winners that made all at Epsom. Interesting. I mean, it's a good long straight at Epsom, 3.5 to run.
Yeah, Epsom.
Interesting.
Epsom, I wouldn't say it's anything necessarily out of the order. I think the Epsom, probably the key there is how difficult it is to handle the camber. And sometimes if you've got a horse that gets a reasonable lead on the far rail, they can be hard to peg back. Folkestone and Musselburgh are both interesting ones. Folkestone seems to have increased to me anecdotally, but I haven't. Again, it seems to bear out with the stats here. There seem to be a lot of horses both on the round course and the straight course. The stands rail is definitely the place to be on quick ground at Folkestone, and horses seem to be hard to peg back on the round course too. Looking further down the list, the reason I actually did this research originally was because I was convinced that a course that I've heralded as being the front runners course had changed completely, and that course is Ripon. And the stats bear this up. To my mind, for whatever reason, Ripon's a course that 7 or 8 years ago I made a lot of comments about how well it suited front runners. You don't see anywhere near the number of front running winners at Ripon as you used to do. Whether that's down to more and more jockeys becoming aware of it and them just going half a stride faster during the early stages, I'm really not sure about that. I'm not sure whether there's been some fundamental change in the characteristic of the course, or whether the jockeys are just riding it differently and trainers are sending more front runners there due to big mouths such as myself going on about it. I really don't know that, but
you're not. It's very interesting.
It's definitely, you still hear people talk about Ripon being a front runners course, and really in recent years that hasn't been borne out. Now, if we look at the courses at the bottom,
that's the interesting point here.
Doncaster's got a really low record of horses that made all the running, and I can only think that perhaps jockeys are misjudging the pace here and at places like Newbury as well. There is a possibility that as the races are more competitive, and that's a difficult thing to gauge.
Thirst Gasket,
The other factor that we do that has perhaps changed in recent years is that some of these tracks York in particular, Newbury's another example. On the round course, the jockeys tend to swing wide into the straight, where in previous years they used to stay up the far rail. I know Richard Hughes has talked about this and part of the reasons why they do that. Now, if you think back 10 years at York, you'd quite often see a horse sticking to the far rail and making all the running on the round course. It was a real front runners course, both on the sprint
track. They put the drains in, yeah.
For whatever reason, and they did a lot of work on it when William Darby took over as clerk of the course there, I think trying to get rid of that. But for whatever reason, the jockeys don't seem to even stick to the far rail at York anymore.
I can tell you what it was. You remember we went one year on Channel 4 and we saw the fishes on the Knavesmire jumping out. It was absolutely covered. It was a sea of water when we got there one day. And they had to put new drains in. They cost a lot of money. And I remember actually jumping down into the drains. But I know what you mean, but it's very interesting. The problem is, if the jockeys are watching this and the trainers, they'll say, well, we've got a front runner. We're not going to run him at, don't make the running at Donny. Don't make the running at Newbury. Don't make the running. Hold up.
I think, do you know what? I think it'll all depend on what happened at the very next meeting. The first time I ever spoke about this was before the Great St Wilfrid meeting at Ripon in probably 2003, and I mentioned this, and that day 4 or 5 horses made all the running.
It's
and
interesting.
I don't know if that had an impact or not, but it's a guide. We'll try, and if we can't get this on the website, the footage, we'll try and get it on the column. These stats, they're a very rough guide. They're flawed, and I think if you're dealing with statistics in the racing media, you need to acknowledge when they're flawed, and I would fully do that. They're not perfect, but they are a rough guide as to which tracks. It doesn't mean. I wouldn't even say that it means that such and such a track is a good track for front runners. It just means that a combination of the circumstances that have arisen have led to horses being able to make all the running.
And just confirming, if people couldn't see that, Lingfield is top 20%, so 1 in 5 front runners hold on. Chester, Hamilton, Carlisle, Folkestone, all similar. The worst one at the bottom, you don't try and make all at Donny, it's only 4.1%. Newbury 6.3, York 6.5, Thirsk and Ascot both 8, and Newmarket, the Rowley Mile, 8 as well. So those courses, not easy to make the rank.
Well, you have to take into account each race is different. If you get a lone front runner at any of those tracks near the bottom, I wouldn't be put off it.
No,
it's just that for whatever reason the circumstances have conspired, and there's lots of different variables involved here, but those tracks have produced less front-running winners in handicap races.
I'm with you all the way. I tell you what, fascinating this. Stats, people say you can make stats, say whatever, but they're fascinating. And a lot of hard work done in that. Now, can we move on to Sir Michael?
Sure. Yep.
You and I both agree, one of the greatest racehorse trainers of all time. Now, I read a headline, I was sad to read it, they're not backing Workforce because Stout's out of form.
Yep.
Should that stop people backing Workforce in the Corley Grips on Saturday?
Do you know, I haven't looked in enough detail. I've looked in a little bit of detail at his recent runners. We've all read this stat about his last 29 runners have all been beaten. I know that I think probably 10 of them have been favourites. I also suspect that a lot of them were favourite because they were trained by Sir Michael Stout. I'm not convinced that many of them have run way below the form you would have expected of them. But equally, there's little doubt that he hasn't been absolutely overall in the best form this season. But I just wanted to highlight the way his form has fluctuated this year, because I think this can show how unhelpful it can be to take very short spurts of form too much at face value.
Just read it down.
If you look at Sir Michael Stout's, these are all correct stats from this year, where you could have argued he was out of form or in form, from very small sample sizes. From the 24th of April to the 7th of May, he had 15 consecutive losers.
Beginning of the season, all that sort of stuff, need to run all that, yeah.
Then you could have argued he suddenly shot into form with 2 winners and 2 runners up from his next 8 runners.
Stable beginning to be
then
momentum.
All of a sudden only 1 winner from the next 18 runners. Then bang, 7 winners from his next 12 runners, one of which was Workforce.
Yeah.
If you'd looked at the stable's form 2 or 3 days before Workforce made his reappearance, you would have been saying the stable's possibly not going that well.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the next 15 runners, after that little flurry of winners, were all beaten. From 31st of May to the 10th of June, 15 runners beaten. Then all of a sudden he had 5 winners in a row, all on the same day.
Yeah, was that to York and all that sort of stuff?
I can't remember where it was actually, but there were different courses. But certainly he had 5 winners in a row, all on one day. It may well have been at York. And then we've had the 29 consecutive losers. But what I'm saying here is that you can get very, very big fluctuations if you take very short time spans. Now, I know 29 runners is probably it's a much bigger sample than some of the ones I've been relating to there, but there are small periods this season where you could have said he was in really good form.
Yes.
And I think it's dangerous to take too literally what perhaps a couple of weeks worth of run has done, particularly if you look at, for instance, at Royal Ascot. He didn't have a winner at Royal Ascot, but he had
a couple that ran.
Fiorenti ran very well, just ran
far.
into a well above average winner.
Yeah.
Cape Dollar was unlucky. Possibly wouldn't have won, but would have finished a lot closer in the Sandringham. He had another runner-up.
They're not finishing tailed off, are they? You know, looking as if there's a stable virus.
If you really fancy Workforce, I wouldn't be too put off, because he's the best horse in the yard as well.
Yeah,
he produced his form on his reappearance, so I wouldn't be put off if you fancy Workforce.
A very interesting piece by David Milnes, the Gallops watcher, in the Racing Post this morning, about a number of his horses going to the sales in the next few days, the July sales at Newmarket at Tats, because he doesn't think he's got the horsepower that he did have. And when he was watching the stable last year, it was apparent that the horses, the 2-year-olds, weren't as good as apparently they had been. That's David Milnes in the Racing Post this morning, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, well, that is interesting, because if he thought there was a problem with the stable and a lot of his horses were underperforming across the board, he wouldn't be selling them, would he? He'd be waiting for them. He'd be waiting to clear the problem. I would say so.
Well, I like one. There's one running tomorrow that I'm going to put up in the hotline, Levitate at Yarmouth tomorrow, and I'll try and call that home for the comedy box. So I needn't be worried that he's out of form. Can still tip it and still back it.
I wouldn't be put off.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to know. Listen, it's going great. Listen, we'll take a break. Plenty still to come from the Form Guru. Stay with us.